This time, Assistant, before we get to item number 4, Bill?
I'd like to call item.
I'm sorry.
I'd read number 4 item, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. A notice of public hearing to be held by the City Council of the City of Willow Park on Tuesday, February the 8th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex located at 516 Ranch House Road, Willow Park, Texas, 76087, to receive input regarding text amendments to the City of Willow Park zoning ordinance regarding commercial amusement uses. Mr. Funderburk.
There has been, tonight I'm coming to clarification. First of all, the Fort Card Room, which they had a remodel permit, that permit was withdrawn by them, and their inspection fees were returned to them. And the process, what you have in front of you tonight is an ordinance that will be stronger. In other words, there will be a process, must go through planning and zoning, must go through the city council. There will be an SUP that has to be approved by both entities before anything of this type or any other similar type of business would be allowed in Willow Park. Okay? There's still a process to go through. I hope this clarifies this in front of us.
Thank you. Item number 8, Commercial District Use Regulations, Commercial Amusement Indoor Special Use Permit, SUP required. Commercial Amusement Outdoor Special Use Permit, SUP required. Item B, Light Industrial District Use Regulations, Section 1406015. Excuse me, please. Commercial Amusement Indoor Special Use Permit, SUP required. Commercial Amusement Outdoor Special Use Permit, SUP required. We're open the public hearing, 7:27 p.m. Are there any public comments?
Would you like me to speak, sir?
You have 3 minutes.
I gave you my notes, didn't I, sir?
I can, right here.
KJ Hanna, Meadow Place Estates, Willow Park. Council, mayor, and neighbors. Pardon us for being gun-shy of this commercial amusement ordinance. The web page for the Fort Card Room still indicates opening soon. Our last communication from our elected officials, except for tonight, indicated that the city may be sued because of this commercial amusement ordinance. And tonight, the council is voting to correct the commercial amusement ordinance that the council thought was correct in the July 13th city council meeting. Pardon us for being distrustful of this particular ordinance and for strongly asking the council to add a caveat that states unequivocally, but in some legalese, that adult amusement activity or similar activities are prohibited in commercial property in Willow Park, that a private card room activity or similar activities are prohibited in commercial property in Willow Park, that these and similar activities are prohibited in all commercial and light industrial zone property in Willow Park, including but not limited to property that is owned, leased, and rented. Please assure the citizens of Willow Park that unless they purposefully elect representatives who run on a platform of bringing commercial adult amusement into Willow Park, that we will have no ordinances and laws with no loopholes which will prohibit commercial adult amusement, including private card rooms, from Willow Park. Thank you for your consideration and for your public service.
Thank you. Public hearing, anyone else? Public hearing is closed at 7:30 p.m. Item C, consider an act to adopt an ordinance providing for an amendment to Chapter 14 zoning regulations, Article Section 1406014A, C, Commercial District in Article Section 1406.015A, Light Industrial District Use Regulations, Commercial Amusement, Indoor Special Use Permit required, and Commercial Amusement. Outdoor Special Use Permit required of the City of Willow Park zoning ordinance as amended, provided for publication and an effective date. We'll need a motion, please.
Question.
Question.
Pat, can you describe the special use permit process, or Brian?
Yeah, it will require 2 public hearings. P and Z will hold a public hearing. They will then determine whether or not it is essentially in the best interest, because that's what zoning decisions are. You have great discretion. They'll determine whether or not this use is something that they're in favor of for the city of Willow Park. If they recommend it, it then comes before council, and council will have the same discretion to approve it or deny it. So again, 2 public hearings, 2 open processes, so public input will be there. So that's strengthening the process, so that way. And that's true for any amusement use, indoor or outdoor.
So when a remodel comes up, define or describe that process on that, something that was similar to.
A remodel, so a
Yeah.
remodel permit is, in the space in question, the building was already finished out, the shell, if you will. Then they came in and wanted to remodel it to a certain, for mechanical, plumbing, electrical, whatnot. I think there's some confusion between a remodel permit and a certificate of occupancy. Those two are not the same document. We had no reason to not issue a remodel permit for that. It's the same process, by the way, that we did for Bird's Mill, that we did for Carve and Cast, and that we did for I believe it's the hair salon that's over there. It's the same process. They got a remodel permit, but they didn't get a certificate of occupancy until they had gone through other inspections and so on and so forth. That's what a remodel permit is. If it's new construction, then that's a totally different process. What this ordinance does tonight is that after consulting with you guys and visiting about how do we make this process stronger, this is the strongest way you're going to be able to get this done, because you have 2 public hearings, you have P and Z that's got to go through. It also has to go through city council. So you guys will have a final say, and it's on any indoor or outdoor amusement. So I'm going to just tell you right now, you've got a restaurant that's coming into town that's going to go through this exact same process, that a restaurant that I would consider family friendly, but has some components to it, such as pickleball, that would be qualified as an outdoor entertainment activity. So that restaurant will have to come through this process. You'll have Betty, you can expand on this. It's movie theaters, bowling alleys. I mean, it's anything entertainment and amusement will have to come through this body.
You are not amending your definitions. So everything that was listed in the definitions, which the definitions are still in effect, will require the SUP. The movie theaters, bowling alley, any of those uses, because like I said, the definition did not change for those.
So how does our neighbor cities like Weatherford or somebody do this sort of thing? You
In
know?
Weatherford, Aledo, Granbury,
Stephenville.
Stephenville, Benbrook, commercial amusement and indoor and outdoor is classified, but they are used by right, which is what you have now. But this will require the special use permit. The definition of commercial amusement indoor currently is an operation which is conducted within an enclosed building, including bowling alleys, video arcades, dance hall or theater, auditoriums, and recreational facilities with or without fixed seating. And then the outdoor is an operation including miniature golf courses, driving ranges, swimming pools, skateboard parks, water parks, and associated facilities.
So to clarify, what we're putting in place now is more stringent than our neighboring cities? Or
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because
So
it
we're
has to
now
fall under
exceeding-
that.
What's that?
It has to fall under one of those.
If it is commercial amusement,
Right.
indoor or outdoor, then it will require a special use permit going through the public hearing
Our
process.
current code aligns with our current neighboring cities, which is how we got in the position with this card room, right? Is that correct?
Our ordinance, there was nothing in the Willow Park ordinance.
Right.
And these definitions and the uses were added.
Okay.
But
now-
this does strengthen the ordinance.
Right, so now if a similar company or business wanted to come to Willow Park or to a neighboring city after we put this in place, they have a more stringent requirement to go through, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion, please?
Eric, did we answer your question?
Yeah, you answered my question.
Is there anything on the books for adult entertainment as it's been described, or do we have any policies in place for or against, or what? Is this just kind of the broad catch-all of things, or where do we stand on this?
This would, are you talking, when you say adult entertainment, are you,
I mean, it's a very broad term between, the stuff that we find outside city limits compared to what, anything here. Like, I'm just trying to see if there's anything that could fall in that general range. if
that
there's
would
any-
be, if you're thinking along the lines, and I don't know, we haven't discussed this.
It's just a very broad,
If
like I
it's
said,
a
catch-all.
sexually oriented business, that's a completely
Yeah.
different preset than what
Right.
this is.
Right.
This is a very, very restrictive form of adult entertainment. So, for example, pickleball would be considered adult entertainment. We have a restaurant that's probably going to be asking for a permit that we've done a 380 agreement with, that's going to want to do pickleball. That's the concept that we have right now. They're going to do restaurants, outdoor entertainment, and amusement. And so they will need to come through this process. I think if you're talking more explicit things.
No.
Okay.
Let's say any of the restaurants that are coming in the next few years, the state of Texas were to legalize sports gambling in establishments
have
like
to
this,
come through this process.
would have to come through this process as well.
Yes.
Everything,
Yes, it would have to go through P&Z. It would have to go through the city council.
is that for existing businesses as well, if they were to add those
Uses, yes.
uses?
So if Railhead decided to open up, I'm just picking
Sure,
on
yeah,
Railhead.
yeah.
If they decided to
Any-
open up a sports book in the back.
Sure.
They'd have to go through this
Or
process.
put a slot machine in a corner or anything like that has to go through the same
Yes.
process? Okay.
So we get public feedback twice with the public hearings. E and Z separately votes to see if they proceed forward with this, and it goes to council. So
Yes.
we have a lot of layers of transparency on this.
Yes.
For the public, and we can hear public input on exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the types of businesses.
You will have
and
two public
activities we
hearings.
want in our city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance providing for an amendment to Chapter 14 zoning regulations, Article, Section 14.12.001, 18C, Commercial District, and Article, Section 14.06.015A, L1, Light Industrial District Use Regulations, Commercial Amusement, Indoor and Commercial Amusement Outdoor of the City of Willow Park, zoning ordinance as amended, providing for publication and effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Item number 1, discuss action to approve a preliminary plat of blocks 2, 3, and 4, Porter Addition, being 21.752 acres, J.M. Froman, survey abstract number 471, City of Willow Park, Parker County, Texas. Betty?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a preliminary plat for a proposed 3-block subdivision. The property is zoned commercial, and it is in the I-20 overlay district. This plat will provide for the extension of Bankhead Highway right-of-way to the west. It will also provide for Eagle Drive. If you remember, several months ago, we had talked about bringing Bankhead and running it north and south, and we abandoned Stagecoach. Have a 90-degree intersection. Well, that street is going to be named Eagle, so it will be. And then there is Riser Road, which is proposed. Those are all 60-foot right-of-ways and will be dedicated with and improved with this plat. The subdivision will be served from water and sanitary sewer service. There will be fire hydrants installed on the water mains in compliance with ISO regulation. Stormwater in this area flows northeast to southwest to the Clear Fork of the Trinity. That would be to the, I guess that would be to the left of the plat. There is a portion of Lot 1, Block 3, and Lot 1, Block 4 that are in the 100-year flood zone and floodway. There will be a FEMA study on this property, or it is being prepared. There will also be a letter of map revision that will need to be approved by FEMA for development of these properties. Staff and Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat with 2 changes to be incorporated on the final plat. One, that the cross-access and fire lane easements be provided across each of the lots, and those will be a 25-foot minimum as this is commercial. And then the entrance locations, the driveway curb cuts will be approved with site development plans for the I-20 Service Road, Bankhead Highway, Riser Road, and Eagle Drive. You have in your packet the plat. We also have it on the screen. And then if you have any questions, Mr. Clayton Farrow with Jacob and Martin, who is the engineering firm, is here and would answer those. Or I'll answer any questions of the report.
This is just the plat for just the blocks. This has nothing to do with Bankhead Highway or potentially Bankhead reemerging.
This will be there is a proposed right-of-way extension that will be the right-of-way dedication, and then there will be improvements
Okay.
on that portion of Bankhead.
Okay.
It also this plat allows us to line up the entrance to Trinity Christian's athletic complex. So we'll actually have a 4-way intersection there. Their parking lot will come out, which will really help with the traffic flow because theirs are going to be, heavy flow at certain times, but it will allow for that 4-way intersection that should help with the traffic, both incoming and outgoing. So TCA is working with them on that.
Good.
But this is, just to be clear, this is a dedication for Bankhead. This
Yes.
isn't, yeah.
This is just additional right-of-way dedication. Because if you remember, as we've worked along Bankhead Highway, we have attempted to get an additional sometimes we get 10 foot, sometimes it's a little more, to eventually have a 60-foot right-of-way dedication for a collector all the way through the city.
Is that 4 lanes just to the west of that? On the plat going in, that traffic right here? Am I looking at the right one?
That is coming off of the frontage road.
Yeah, it's coming off, the service road is on the north side.
When we realign it. And-
Oh, when we realign?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that is not 4 lane.
It's
That is a
different.
60-foot. Normally, a collector like that would have, it could, normally it's just 2 lanes with the center turn.
Okay, that's what I need.
We will see the final design on that with the final plat because we will have the improvement plans at that time. But I believe it's 3 with the center, 2 with the center turn.
Okay, thanks, Betty. Any other questions, or do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as read.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 2, discuss action to approve final plat of replat Lot 10R1, Block B, being a replat of lots 10R and 11R1, Block B, Crown Point Addition, City of Willow Park, Parker County, Texas, located on Shops Boulevard. Miss Betty?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a replat to combine 2 lots. This lot will be 2.725 acres. It is commercial. It is within the Shops development. And this is the property where the district, which is a proposed restaurant and retail development, will be located. This replat eliminates that center lot line as well as putting in the fire lane easement on the north side of the property. This plat does meet the requirements of the city's subdivision ordinance for a final plat and comes forth with a unanimous recommendation from Planning and Zoning and staff for approval. Jordan Honeycutt and Jeff Davis with Spire Engineering are here if you have any questions regarding the plat.
Okay, do we have any questions for Betty, or do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve of the final plat of replat lot 10R1, Block B, Crown Point Edition, as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank
We're going to
you.
skip down to item number 6, Chris, if with everyone's permission. And this is discussion on the water wastewater rate study.
Council, a few months ago, we hired the services of New Gen Strategies and Solutions, and tonight you will have that water and wastewater rate study as presented by Chris Eckert, Chief Financial Officer and partner of New Gen. So, Chris?
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Chris Eckert with New Gen Strategies and Solutions. Excuse me. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. In the interest of time, we won't be going through every single number this evening, but I do want to give you just an overview of the water and wastewater rate study results, what we're recommending as we look into the future relative to your water and wastewater rates. Before we jump into numbers, though, I do want to remind you that as a council, when you are looking at the water and wastewater utility, you need to remember that this is tracked in what is called an enterprise or proprietary fund. That is a separate type of accounting. It's a separate type of fund that is reserved for business-type activities of government. So again, while you sit as a council, you also sit as the board of directors of a business. So ultimately, we are making business decisions tonight when we are looking at water and wastewater rates. Our water and wastewater rate schedule is a policy document, but it is also a business document. We need to make sure that our business is successful. For our business to be successful, our revenues must match or exceed expenses. We must reinvest in the business. We must also save for a rainy day. And that is literal with water, because when it rains, we sell less water, we have less revenue. So again, all of those come into play when we are looking at a rate schedule, especially as we look into the future. Starting tonight, I did want to take you through a regional bill comparison, because most councils that I speak to always ask me, how do we compare to our neighbors? How do we look? How are we when we look at the regional area? And so while I put these charts together and show these to councils, I also provide this caveat. This is not an apples to apples comparison. Every city is different. Every city has different ways to fund their utility. They may have different water sources, different wastewater treatment methods. So again, this is not apples to apples. We need to do what's right for our utility, for our community. But again, the comparison you see here is a residential customer, a base residential customer, using 5,000 gallons of water, producing 5,000 gallons of sewage flow on a monthly basis. You can see where you lie in the lighter area there, a little bit closer to the top, but certainly not at the top of this comparison. The next chart I have for you is a commercial comparison. This is a 15,000 gallon commercial customer, 5/8 inch meter for a commercial customer here, 15,000 gallons of water, 15,000 gallons of wastewater flow. So again, you can see how you compare with other communities within the area. So as we look at our business going forward, one of the elements that is impacting our business is the need for capital investment. You heard me say earlier, we must reinvest in our business. So you see the listing here. We worked with your consulting engineer to put this list together. There are some big dollar items on this list, but some of these have already been funded. For example, the new wastewater treatment plant. That's already there. We've got the debt in place. We're already moving forward on that. There are a couple $1.5 million items that you see here at the top, and then the third line down. What we've done is we've gone ahead and put together a longer-term plan for funding those items. Fortunately, the city is in a very good position. In working with your staff, it's my understanding you have substantial reserves in place right now. At the same time, you have impact fees in place. All of these different revenues and funding sources we've built into our plan to try and keep rate action as low as possible going forward, but it also allows you to execute on these projects. So again, you are in a very good place where you are right now. We just need to make sure that as we look out into the future, we make some slight rate adjustments to get us where we need to be. But again, you are in very good position right now. I know you've got a financial report on your agenda tonight. You're going to see those numbers within that financial report. So with that, again, those capital improvement projects, we do have an anticipated debt issuance coming in 2025 for some of those larger projects that I just showed you. However, it's as we look at the numbers, we believe you can actually fund that debt issuance with impact fee revenues. Otherwise, you could cash fund those projects with impact fee revenues. 2025 is a long way away. So as we get closer to that time, this plan may need to be amended, could be amended depending upon the situation that we're in at that time. But again, we feel that you're well placed because of your impact fees right now as you look at those large projects going forward. So looking just graphically at what, there we go. So just looking, we're going to start with the water side. We're going to go to sewer, then we're going to put it all together. So just looking at the water side of the business right now, the chart that you see on the screen, the bars, that is the cost. That's the cost projection going forward from this fiscal year going all the way to 2027. The line, the green line you see, that's the revenue line. So we're in fairly good position on the water side right now, slightly under, but as we look going further out, we can use some reserves, we can use some impact fees, and we're actually in a very good place on the water side long term. Now, one thing I do want to note within this forecast, you will be purchasing water from Fort Worth. That is a bit of an unknown right now. So within this forecast, we do not have those dollars in there. It is our anticipation that as you start taking from Fort Worth more, as you start taking that water, you're going to have to build that into your rate schedule. That's not built into the rate schedule you see tonight. So that is one thing I will note for you.
I got a question. So why
Yes, sir.
is that an unknown? Because we understand what we're paying
But we don't
on an
know,
annual basis?
we don't know what the volume is.
Okay.
Because we got on Fort Worth in really August, September.
Right.
Was the first time that we really started getting an invoice from them.
Okay.
So we don't know what that's going to be until we go through a full 12-month cycle.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's other variables, if Michelle wants to pop in at some point, but there's other variables. For example, the ground storage tank has not been completed yet. So we are basically flowing constantly from Fort Worth, so we're constantly taking at the moment from Fort Worth. Once we have the ground storage tank, which is obviously the purpose of it, we won't have that much flow coming in.
And again, your rate from Fort Worth will change every year going forward. And so your rate that you pass through from Fort Worth will need to fluctuate as the rate changes. Okay? So on the sewer side, we are not quite in the same position. So you see where we are. Again, same chart setup. The bar is the cost. The line is the revenue. As we look at this, this is not unusual to us. I would say probably 90 to 95% of the utilities we look at are in this exact same position where water's in great shape, wastewater not so much. And the reason for that is citizens understand paying for water. They get a commodity. They don't quite understand paying for wastewater because, again, that goes down the drain. You flush it down the toilet, it goes away. Nobody thinks about it after that. But if you break it down on a unit cost basis, it is incredibly expensive to treat wastewater. It is a cost-intensive process. So again, this doesn't shock us. This is nothing to be concerned about. But it does tell us longer term, we do need to potentially look at some sewer rate adjustments to get our sewer utility where it needs to be longer term. Okay?
No question on that. If we add additional customers, does that pretty much say the same ratio of?
But as long as you're not adding fixed cost as you add those customers, you're spreading that fixed cost over more units and the ratio gets better.
Most of our sewer utility is a fixed cost because it's the debt obligation for the wastewater treatment
right.
plant. The actual variables as far as labor, materials, things of that nature, I think we got maybe 2 employees, 2 FTEs over there. They're going to need some materials, but not a whole lot. The biggest impact's the debt for the new wastewater treatment plant, and we knew that going into it. I think to answer your question, you have roughly 2,200 water accounts to spread out your fixed cost of Fort Worth
Right.
water and everything else. You have, what we got, Candy, 800, 900 sewer accounts
somewhere around there.
at the current moment to consume, 14 million for a wastewater treatment plant. So you're going to have that. Now, as we grow, you're going to add these sewer accounts to it. Development will probably pay for most of the infrastructure. Developers tend to put in the water lines, sewer lines, so on and so forth. So those are costs that we won't absorb. That fixed cost stays the same, but we're adding more people to pay off the debt. If that-
Right. Well, and again, that's what you see on this graph. You actually see that the revenue line is growing faster there than the cost line. So again, we're spreading that fixed cost out. We're using impact fees. We're using some reserves there. So that's why when you're looking at the utility today, the numbers actually look better longer term. And that's what you're going to see here on this slide. And again, I apologize for the size of the text here. This is in your packet, so you can get back and really dig into these numbers. But you can see what we're comparing here. We're putting the utility together. We're putting water and sewer together. We're looking at it combined because that's how the debt rating agencies look at it. They look at it on a combined basis. So you can see while there's some under recovery, some shortfall right now, that shortfall actually falls. It reduces longer term because we do have more of those resources available to us. So what we've done, we've gone in and put together a longer term plan focusing on some sewer rate adjustments that gets us to where we need to be there by 2027. So again, this is going to take some evaluation. It's going to take some monitoring as you move through the plan. But our goal here was to use impact fees, use our available reserves, kind of get to a safe landing spot there by 2027, get you where you need to be with some rate adjustments along the way.
Do you have a growth component factored into this?
We do have a minor growth component. This matches what your engineer was using in their impact fee study.
Which I think Michelle, at her last report, if you saw what we're adding every year, it's significant. With more, we got a bunch of really good realtors in Willow Park sitting in the room.
Absolutely.
And
So clarify for me on this. So if we're underrunning on sewer, in the past, we've shifted funds from water to sewer, but you're saying they're considered by the county, or who's monitoring or who?
So ultimately, what this comes down to, when you issue debt, the debt rating agencies are coming in and they're giving you a rating based on the financial condition of your utility. They're putting everything together. They're looking at water, wastewater combined when they give you that rating.
So the debt rate, they think of it as one unit, but technically, legally, we've got to observe them as two separate entities that have to transfer funds back and forth to keep one balance over the other.
yes,
You know, if sewer is underrunning, do we foresee having to do that then for the near future?
to raise sewer rates.
No, to borrow money out of water to
I
pay sewer?
think you may have to do that, some of that in the short term. We got such a really good deal on the interest rate, and I know if Leah was here, she would caution me not to get too much on the rates. But you got such a good interest rate on the sewer. I know that Chris is kind of painting a picture. I don't want to sit there and say you don't have to raise the sewer rates. I would never say
Right,
that.
right.
I will say that we monitor it every year. So me and Jake will have an hour-long conversation about every quarter about how are we performing. He's about to tell you all that here in a second. And we'll monitor the rates on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah.
To tell you if I'm concerned about the sewer system, I'm not losing sleep over the sewer system. The 5-minute drive from my house to here is what I think about, and by the time I get in the door, someone's yelling about a water bill, so that's what I start thinking of.
Well, again, I'd emphasize to you, what we see in your system right now is not unusual. You see that with most utilities. So again, it's not anything to lose sleep over. It is something that, we are recommending some sewer rate action that you're going to see here in a minute, which gets you where we believe you're going to need to be by 2027. But it is not an unusual situation to find yourself. Yes, sir.
So question, so if we're looking at this as a business, which I haven't thought of that way yet, and we're a board, so you're gonna give us a recommendation on
Yes, sir.
that? And so when we look at it as a business, are we looking at it both water and wastewater together as a business, or we're looking at both of them separate and trying to make the best decision
So
for?
we do look at them separate, but ultimately, when we came up with our rate plan, we put them together. Because at the end of the day, we still have to worry about affordability of charges to customers.
Right.
We want to do the best we can for the customer. And in order to do the best we can for the customer, it makes more sense to put it together. As you said, you may need to borrow from one fund to another for a while. You can restore those over time if necessary. But at the end of the day, we have to do the best we can for the customer. That's why we put it together.
We did that actually, Jake. In fact, we just did the ordinance in October or September to change it because you had been funding your sewer debt through water proceeds. And the sewer fund owed the water fund, yeah, 1.5 million, and it was never going to be able to repay it back.
The other thing to think about, if you have residents that are paying water and wastewater, it's the same pocketbook. So where it starts to matter is when you don't have a resident that's paying both water and wastewater, that's when you get into a pricing signal issue. Are we really pricing service effectively? So, okay. So with that, again, we've put together a rate plan that ultimately gets you, based on our projections, to the yellow line here. This is the revenue line under our proposed rate plan. So let me walk you through what that plan looks like. And again, I know the font is kind of small there on the screen, but what we've put together here are some rate increases in fiscal year 23, 25, and 27. So every other year. The first increase that we would propose would be in fiscal year 2023. So that's October of this year. So starting with next fiscal year. It's a very small initial rate increase. It's a $1 increase on the sewer bill. Very small. Why did we come up with $1? Ultimately, we went back and looked at some of your comparison communities, and that brings you in line with some of those key communities with some action that they're already planning on taking. It brings you comparable to them. So again, we're using reserves over time as we go through this. The next rate action would be in 25 and 27, and we tried to set these actions equivalent. For a 5,000-gallon wastewater customer, it would be an increase of $8.50. That would be the increase in 25 and 27. That's on the sewer side. No water increases built in here at all because we don't need them other than passing through Fort Worth. But again, we have sewer increases built in here to get our sewer utility where it needs to be. That's the plan that we've put together at this time. But again, my magic 8 ball is not the best in the world at telling you exactly what's going to happen in 2027. I can't tell you what the inflation rate is going to be in 6 months. So there's a lot of unknowns. We're going to have to monitor this as we go forward. So that's just my caution to you. While we think this is the plan, we think it will work, hopefully by the time we get there, we'll be able to do even better than the plan that you see here. The message to you, again, is we do need to take some sewer rate action. We need to be looking at that sewer rate action in the longer term. All right? So again, that's the impact to a 5,000-gallon customer. This is the commercial customer. Again, the dollar increase there in 23. The increase on the wastewater bill here is larger for these commercial customers in 25 and 27. But again, we have more volumes. Instead of 5,000 gallons, we have 15,000 gallons. That's why you see the increase of $20.50 there for a 15,000-gallon customer. All the increases on the sewer side. The only thing on the water side would be passing through Fort Worth as that occurs. So what is this anticipated to look like? Again, we come back to that regional comparison. Right now, a 5,000-gallon water and wastewater residential customer, 108.21, recommending just that slight increase there in October of this year, adding that dollar, taking them to a 109.21. For a commercial customer, again, same chart you saw, just adding them in with that dollar, you can see still in a relatively comparable position at that point. So with that, there are rate schedules in your packet that outline what these rates need to look like. We will have a technical report with all of the numbers, all of the graphs in it, but happy to answer any other questions you may have this evening.
So question, I assume you're working with other cities of comparable size?
Yes, sir.
So in our situation, we've got, more than 50% of the households are on septic as opposed to sewer. Do you see cities in the state that are moving away from the septic to the sewer, and do they have a mechanism for doing that, for financing that, or is they're just having to suck it up and put it, or, because there's a lot of additional resources there, plus the incentive to go to a city sewer system as opposed to septic can be very cost effective for homeowners down the road. But how do they make that leap from here to where they got to be to?
Every community is different. It's difficult. The best answer I can give you, I've got another community I work with. I'm going to be there again this Thursday night. They just raised their sewer rates, $36 a month for sewer customers. That's what they had to do to make that leap, to invest in a new plant, to get to where they need to be. Because again, they are another high-growth community. But the problem is, when you get to these communities like this, the growth is coming, but in order to support the growth, you have to have centralized
Right.
sewer. So you have to fund it up front, then the growth comes, and over time, you can bring that bill down. But in your specific situation, what you've done very, very well is you've got impact fees in place. So as this development occurs, as these houses come on, they're paying these impact fees, which can help. It won't get you all the way there, but that can be a significant help in getting over that hump and making that conversion that needs to be made. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of grants that are out there. There's low interest financing, as you've already taken advantage of. That's about the best solution that's out there right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Item number 3,
That was just, that was discussion only, but if y'all want to authorize staff to do anything, my recommendation is that I'd like to visit with Jake about some of these conclusions a little bit more. The rate increases aren't set to go in until October. I'd like to give us some time to study this, come back to you guys during the budget process, if that's acceptable.
that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Item number 3, to approve the city's first quarter financial report.
Good evening. As you can see, so far this year, so we're looking at the first fiscal quarter of the year. And again, as I always do, I'll just highlight some items, and if there's any questions along the way, please let me know. Starting on the first page, as you can see, a really good start to the year. Every fund is showing a surplus for the year. Specifically in the water, wastewater, that's good to see, because usually you think your October, November, December are lower revenue months. Now, we do have our debt payments coming in February, so obviously that will offset that a little bit. And then general fund, very strong start to the year, and we'll look at some of the changes year over year from last year on your major revenue sources. But that, you would expect a big surplus Q1, because you're starting to get that property tax revenue in. December's a big month, and then January is your other big month that we'll see on the next report. A few things to point out. So I'm just looking at the projects. I like to kind of evaluate this, see where we're at. You can see on the water line, there's still, this is again, total cash. This is Hudson Oaks and Willow Park's portion, $8.7 million in there. And we had a little discussion, so I know there's still the ground storage tank to be completed. Mm-hmm. And I know Candy had reached out to some of the vendors just to see, what do we have to anticipate to come down. So that's something we're kind of keeping an eye on to see, is there going to be excess cash? And, potentially how does that get used, if there is, or where we end up on that. So there's still quite a bit there, but I know there's still a few large projects to be done. And so it's just something, as those come on, we'll keep an eye on that to see where you're at. The wastewater, again, there hasn't been much movement on that. And then The CLFRF funds, you have the 723,000, we had touched on that last time. You'll get that same amount in September again, and there's specific uses for that. And there's also a time period to use that money. And so, again, just something to monitor and make sure you're looking at your needs there. Looking just down at the bottom again on page 1, year over year, couple things to point out. You can see your tax revenue is up 412,000. So 348 of that is M&O, and 59 is sales tax increases. And so I will say, again, as I mentioned, the M&O, we increased the rate, and also that's hard to know with timing because you think we're not really going to know on that till probably March, because you think everybody pays their bills in November, December, January. We'll get that money, delay a few weeks. And so some of that's timing, so it's hard to say. But obviously, your sales taxes continue to grow. I know Brian keeps up on those reports and notifies you of that. So I would anticipate, again, we're ahead of budget on that, so hopefully continue to trend that. Another thing I was going to point out, so like last year, that other revenue, you can see it's down 70,000. That's because last year you had some of that COVID money come in, so that was a one-time bump that you had. Looking through, there's a couple items I was just going to point out on here. So if you flip through on the detail, I'm going to go to page number 7 on this. And so you can see the contractual is up a little bit. So I just, again, pointing out a few things that I had noticed. There was some litigation, some legal fees that were paid out Q1, and also some of the software costs was over budget. So I think just on the software, some things came up beyond what we had expected there. Also on the consultants and professionals, Bureau Veritas were already at 86,000. The budget's 108. But I know that's a discussion item that y'all are having about, potentially not having to outsource that anymore because of some of the costs there. Again, that is variable because you've had some additional revenue on that with the permits there. So again, that's when if you're just looking in terms of budget, that's why that line item is a little bit high because a few of those things coming in there. On the general fund, that's the main thing. And again, as we had heard earlier.
Real quick on revenues, real
Yes.
quick. And I didn't ask you this beforehand, so I apologize. Hotel motel tax.
We haven't had any. We haven't had a dime of that. It's been probably over 2 years.
So
And we were getting, I want to say 6,000.
we weren't getting a significant amount, but we're not getting anything now.
Nothing. It's been probably since 2019 that we've had that. And I know we have reached out to them. Yeah.
We're trying to work with the comptroller to start collecting this tax. We only have one property. We have another one that's going to open up soon. And so I just wanted to make sure that there's a level playing field for both properties. I want to visit with Pat about how we can come back and reclaim. It's not a lot, but it is something I do think they need to be in the habit of paying the hotel motel tax.
Yeah, still, we've talked about it, and again, it's just a matter of how do you legally get that? I don't know. But yeah, we have not had that in a while. So again, general fund, good start to the year. You're building up your reserves. Obviously, this is the time of year you want to do that. So, nothing too out of the ordinary there. On the water fund, so your just user charges alone are $565 this year, last year at $541. So you are continuing to see that increase there that is coming in. One thing I will point out, so if you look on page number 12, and this is, you had mentioned this, Fort Worth Water, we just started paying them, September, October. So if you look there, we've paid out $70,000 Q1, and we only budgeted $50,000. You think that's only 3 months, and that's really not our high usage months. So that's something, obviously, you probably need to look at the budget again on that, may need to amend the budget, and then just kind of monitor what we're spending. Because obviously that you'd anticipate your summer months is when you're really buying the water there. I think you had mentioned maybe the ground storage tank will help reduce that.
Yeah, because what's happened is it's just an open faucet. It's just running, and obviously they'll throttle it off at $500,000. So we're paying for it,
Yeah.
which is not putting a lot of stress on the wells at the moment. But we need to get the ground storage tank going pretty quick.
Yeah, so that's something we'll just keep an eye on. I mean, again, like you talked about, it was a new cost, so it's hard to budget in terms of how much usage you're gonna have there, but that's just something that obviously you'll see on there. But again, you still have a surplus for the year so far for water, so that's good. Again, a good start. You're trending up. And then wastewater, again, on page 14, you can see you're at, 122 this year. So you're pretty flat in terms of fees so far this year. And I know, as was mentioned, and we had talked about, when all the debt was issued in that, you do have, good cash reserves in that account, and again, we'll look at the cash in a minute. Just in that operating account, you have 783,000, and then you got another 360, 400 in reserves. And so when we had, again, me and Brian had talked about that quite a bit in terms of, okay, how much could reserves handle based upon debt payments, things like that. And then also looking at timing of, okay, if you start adding these units, how long will it take to start collecting that revenue? So that's something we obviously will monitor the cash on that. But with the new debt, I would anticipate, you're right, you're going to have a loss this year, but you have the cash to absorb it. So again, that's something we'll monitor, but it's really based upon, when do the connections come on and how soon does that happen? But that's something that we did have discussions about and planned on when that debt was issued. Again, on page 17, so this is just looking at your cash. You can see really in all your funds, you're in really strong cash position. You can see, your general fund, the reserves have lifted quite a bit. Water, obviously sufficient cash. Now, some of that is earmarked for your projects. And then, and I think I'd mentioned this before, so your drainage fund, which is about 3/4 down the page, you had started that in partial in August, so you're at 101,000. So you think that's, just over 4.5 months there, and so that gives you a feel for what's coming in there. And then the other thing I was going to point out, the debt by fund, just showing the allocation on the funds. That did not include that new road bond because that wasn't actually funded till January, so that will change that a little bit. But overall, again, I think good start to the year financially. There wasn't really any major concerns or anything like that. I think, as was mentioned, just obviously with the wastewater, continue to monitor that, growth and everything. But certainly for this year, you're in good shape with the cash reserves you have built up. So any questions on anything?
Good report.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We have a motion to approve the quarter financial report.
I'll make a motion to approve the audit firm for,
No, the first quarter financials.
sorry. I'll make a motion to approve first quarter financials as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 4, to approve an audit firm for fiscal year 21-22 and subsequent audits. Mr. Grimes. Oh, I'm sorry, Candy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. In November of '21, the city released the RFP for audit services for the next fiscal year and 3 to 5 years following that. We received 4 proposals. The committee that reviewed the proposals consisted of Brian, Bill, Jake, and myself. And so we looked through all of them. After careful review, staff is recommending the selection of Snow, Garrett, and Williams as the firm to perform the audits beginning with the next fiscal year.
They are based out of Weatherford.
They are based out of Weatherford.
Well, it's the staff's to be commended that we can now bid it out and get some good bids, which we have not been able to do.
True.
Unfortunate, but thank you for everyone that concerned there for doing that. That's a great job. Do we have a motion to accept recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve the selection of Snow, Garrett, Williams as the firm to perform the annual audits beginning with fiscal year 2021, 2022 as recommended by staff.
Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Candy. Thank you, Brian, and everyone else. Discussion action to terminate the agreement with Bureau Veritas North America. Bill?
Council, as of next Monday, we will have the new building official. Randy Law will be here. He will start creating the building permit department. And Bureau Veritas, since 2014, have been doing the plan reviews, residential and commercial, and doing all inspections. And so Randy will be coming in. He will do plan reviews, commercial and residential as well. So we will not have to send them out. He'll be doing all of that in-house, plus inspections. And so we're asking tonight that we terminate the agreement with Bureau Veritas. And the situation that we have is there's going to be an overlap. There are projects going on that we must keep Bureau Veritas. They're already in the inspection process. So they're too far along that we'll need to keep them and let them finish out that. So we cannot give an exact date of finishing this. So that's why tonight our recommendation is that we give a written 30-day notice, as the agreement states, and that you authorize the city manager to establish an ending date. Because there are so many different projects going on, we can't just have one date out there. So we may have a date on a certain project and end it that way. So that's why the motion will, at the bottom, is why we're recommending it as is. So that's our recommendation, Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
What's our expected cost savings?
So,
Advice?
how much did we spend on BV in the first quarter?
I think you said
80-something thousand.
80-something thousand.
$80-something $1,000. In budget year, a year ago, 189,000 and some odd went to Bureau Veritas. We think that we'll see a savings of somewhere around 75,000 and up a little bit in this next budget year. Well, since we're already into this, we spent some money, so that's not a true statement. But in the
Going
previous
forward.
years,
Going forward.
going forward.
I think the bottom line is you'll see, he's saying 75, I think you're going to see closer to 100 as we get more projects and more activities come in. Mr. Law, I was thoroughly impressed with him and his resume and his history. And he drove a hard bargain, but I think we're going to be okay.
So do we just pay them based on the remaining projects?
Yes.
A la carte, if you will?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in my best interest, that's to end this thing quickly. What we didn't want to do is come back to council and there's a 30-day lag or whatever. I'd like to terminate the agreement as soon as possible, as soon as practically possible, I guess it should make sense.
Motion, please.
Make a motion to terminate the agreement with Bureau Veritas North America with the extension as
And you're authorizing the city manager to give a 30-day written notice. and
30-day
establish
written
an
notice,
ending
yes.
service date for all the projects.
We get all that in?
that clear as mud.
We got it.
We have a motion. We have a clear motion. Do we have a second?
I got it.
We have a second? Second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 7, discuss action to amend the social media usage policy. Mr. Grimes? Or Rose?
Ms.
Sorry.
Hoffman.
Got it right.
It'll take 2 days.
This is essentially, good evening, council, citizens. This is essentially a housekeeping matter. I attended a training session in December with Tamio, and we met with a First Amendment specialist who specializes in social media. And I became aware that we had some language in our social media comment moderation policy that was a little out of date based on some more recent rulings from the Fifth Circuit. So this just kind of cleans up the language as far as our comment moderation policy and gets us into line with what the current legal rulings are. Does anyone have any questions?
Initial
example?
The main change from previously to before is they have narrowed the definition of obscenity and defamation to be more in line with the legal definition, and they have ruled that, and we're seeing these cases develop throughout the country. Texas actually is one of the more recent specific rulings that the comment section of a government page is considered to be a limited public forum, and therefore there are only very specific kinds of speech that are protected and not protected. And the only way that we can go in and hide or delete a comment is if it falls under the definition of non-protected speech, which is the list I have here: obscenity, defamation, threats, promotion of illegal activities. Somebody says, let's go shoot up the police station, I can get rid of that comment.
Sure.
So it's just cleaning up our language to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Will this be posted on our webpage?
Yes, sir. The original policy already is, so we'll go in and update that.
Okay. Very good. Do we have a motion, please?
Did you accept it and authorize us to make the changes?
I'll make a motion to accept the changes as read and post them on the city's Facebook page, website, excuse me.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Rose.
Thank
for
you.
doing that. Item number 8, to consider any future agenda items. Mr. Grimes?
We will have a wastewater treatment plant public hearing. This is the first step of the permitting process with TCEQ. Crystal and I been playing what are we doing on the 22nd all day, because we've had notes, but we could never get together on the same page. I do know that we will have a couple of reports from staff. It may not be all the reports you've heard last time, not a lot of things have changed. Hopefully we will have an update, well, we won't have it in the next 2 weeks, on the storage tank. I know that Rose has a very interesting report that I read last week on our engagement. Not that kind of engagement, social engagement. I've been happily married 21 years. Yeah, that. The number of views we're seeing on Facebook, the number of clicks we're getting on YouTube, it really was an eye-opener to me, and I'm trying to not blush and fire Michelle at the same time.
Anything else?
Anybody want to add anything to the 22nd?
We're working on a alcohol permit fee
Oh,
ordinance and
well,
policy.
Yeah,
We-
we need to discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not sure that the ROI is worth the time that we're spending in admin time to
Collect.
collect.
We'll talk to you about it.
Okay, anything else?
Yes. Pat, you were going to rework the public comments section that we unanimously passed back in November to change it to read 5 minutes with a floor of 3. If we had a lot of people show up for comments, then everybody at least would get 3 minutes.
Are you talking about the policy that we presented, I think, in October?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that Leah and I came up with some changes, and everybody else, we all kind of, as a group, came up with some changes about giving more time.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Grimes, any comments?
Yes, a couple of things, housekeeping things. I'd be remiss if Jake and I and Candy didn't tell you we are experiencing some frustrations with the current auditing firm. We have been working with them hand in glove all through December, and then with an expectation of presenting an audit report to you guys either tonight or on the 22nd. None of us are very optimistic you will have an audit report on the 22nd, mainly because they're still asking us the same questions they asked us in December. That's why we didn't recommend them for the previous agenda item. State statute says I have to have an audit report to you by the end of March. We have emphasized that to the auditors. I'm just giving you a heads up that we're going to do everything we can, but right now it's kind of out of our control. We did make some improvements to the public safety building. As I mentioned last time, they're complete. If you haven't been over there, court's now being held over there. I think it's working pretty well. They took a closet and a conference room that wasn't really functional, turned that into municipal court, and they cut a little wall out and made a little window there, and so it's working fairly well. And then in this building, over the weekend, they cut a hole where, in Bill's office, they cut a hole so now we can go back and forth from where court used to be. You now have full transparency there. That's where Randy is going to office. Jamie will office over there, and it makes the office flow work a lot better. We've also done a couple of things in here, and no one has said anything about it, so I'm just curious if you've noticed it. We've moved Tony and Betty now share an office. That's by design. And Rose decided she wanted a bigger office, and we kind of just had to do it. We've limited the seating here. I don't know if anybody's noticed or not. We've limited the number of rows, the number of seats, but we think we can make this work. We think we can make this function for a while. But we do have an offer to use I guess it's the conference room, the training room, at the First Financial, is it
First Texas Bank.
First Texas Bank, the new bank building. We have an opportunity to use that for council meetings as well. I still think we can hold P&Z, parks, some other boards meetings here. I think this building still functions for that, but we may want to move some council meetings over to the other one. We do have limited seating here. Obviously, we're still live streaming and whatnot, but.
Is the plan still to wall off part of this for conference room and add space, office space?
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
That was the other issue. I expect us to have, probably go into executive session to discuss some lease opportunities that we may have for holding some council meetings, and maybe even purchase of real property.
Okay.
I'm not fully prepared to do that, to say we'll have that on the 22nd, but we may have an opportunity there.
Okay.
Stacy Lynch is just giving us her office for $1. 99-year lease for $1.
We had the proclamation denied for Zonta. There are 21 nonprofit organizations in Parker County. And I would encourage the citizens, I would encourage you all, if you're not involved with one, I would encourage you to look around, and they need your help, and they need your support, and if you're not involved with one, I would encourage you to get involved with one. So with that said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night, everybody.